All right, let's dive right in. India is making a huge and frankly pretty sudden move. They're pouring a ton of money into Russia's most advanced fighter jet, the Su-57. Now, this is a decision that's got everyone talking, and for good reason. So we're going to break down not just why they're doing this now, but what this whole gambit means for the power dynamics across all of Asia.
You know, it's a wild reality of modern conflict, isn't it? A short, intense fight can just rip the curtain back on strategic problems that have been bubbling under the surface for years. It can force a country to completely rethink its entire defense strategy basically overnight. And that is exactly where our story kicks off.
You see, the trigger for this massive decision wasn't some long, drawn-out plan. Nope. It was a recent, very high-stakes military clash that sent a real shockwave through India's entire defense establishment.
So it all kicked off in May of 2025. An operation codenamed Sindoor just exploded onto the scene. What started as, some targeted strikes on militant hideouts, well, it escalated, and it escalated fast into these intense aerial duels with Pakistan. And for the Indian Air Force, this short, sharp conflict was a massive wake-up call. It laid bare some really critical gaps in their capabilities, gaps they knew they had to fix, and fast.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Look, India's top fighter, the French-made Rafale, it's a fantastic jet, no question. But Operation Sindoor showed its limits. Its combat range, its ability to fly deep into enemy territory. It just wasn't cutting it for the kind of threats they were now facing. The Indian Air Force realized they needed something with more legs, a bigger punch, and the ability to survive in really, really tough airspace.
So with this urgent new need, where did India look? Not to the West, as you might expect. Instead, they turned back to an old partner and to a deal that everyone thought was dead and buried just a few years before. This is where the whole story takes a really interesting twist.
You have to understand, this wasn't an idea that came out of the blue. For years, India and Russia were partners on this joint fifth-generation fighter aircraft program. But back in 2018, India just walked away. Then, bam, Operation Sindoor happens in 2025, and all of a sudden, that old partnership is back on the table, leading to a done deal just a few months later.
Which kind of begs the question, right? If they were already in bed together developing this exact kind of jet, why on earth did India pull the plug back in 2018? What went wrong?
While the original deal had some serious issues, India wasn't happy with the stealth features, there were a lot of question marks about the engine's reliability, and they were really at odds over the cost sharing. To put it bluntly, the deal just wasn't right for India at the time, so they walked.
So, what changed? What made them come back to the table? To really get that, we need to zoom in and take a closer look at the aircraft itself, the Sukhoi Su-57, which NATO calls the Felon, and really dig into the capabilities that suddenly look so good to India.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about range, because this is a huge deal. The Su-57 can fly over 3,500 kilometers. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's almost double the combat radius of their current top-tier jet, the Rafale. So you see, this one feature directly solves that deep strike problem that Operation Sindoor threw right in their face.
And then there's the brains of the operation. The Su-57 has this incredibly advanced ASA radar system. It's a sensor so powerful it can track up to 60 different targets at the same time. I mean, think about the situational awareness that gives a pilot in a chaotic, crowded sky. It's a game changer.
Now, when you stock it up against the competition, the Su-57 really carves out its own unique space. It might give up a little bit of that top-end stealth you see in China's J-20 or America's F-35, but what it gets in return is insane supermaneuverability and that massive, massive range. For India, who needs an answer to the J-20 but can't exactly go buy the F-35, this is a pretty compelling mix.
This quote right here, it perfectly captures India's thinking. Critics love to point out that the Su-57 stealth isn't quite F-35 level, but for India, that's just one piece of the puzzle. The top priority is a jet that can survive, fly way into enemy territory, and carry a heavy load of weapons. And in those categories, the Su-57 is an absolute beast.
But listen, this whole deal is about so much more than just buying a fighter jet off the shelf. It's tied directly into India's massive ambition to build up its own defense industry, a national project they call Make in India.
So the plan is what they're calling a hybrid model. First, India will buy a couple of squadrons directly from Russia to get them in the air quickly. But here's the crucial part. Step 2 is a full transfer of technology. This allows India's own company, HAL, to start building these jets on their own soil, aiming to eventually make up to 60% of the parts right there in India.
And you might be thinking, can they really do that? Well, this isn't just some pipe dream. They have a proven track record. The same HAL facility in Nashik has already built over 220 of the Su-30 MKI fighters under a very similar deal. So they've got the know-how and the infrastructure to do this again, even with a much more advanced jet like the Su-57.
Okay, so let's zoom out. What does this all mean for the big picture? Putting as many as 140 Su-57s into the Indian Air Force isn't just a simple upgrade. No, this is a move that is going to fundamentally redraw the military map of the entire region.
And the Su-57 isn't here to replace what they already have. Think of it as adding a whole new layer to their Air Force. It creates this powerful three-tiered fleet. You'll have the workhorse Su-30s, the nimble Rafales, and now this long-range, heavy-hitting fifth-generation punch from the Su-57.
The strategic benefits here are just massive. For one, it gives India a direct counter to China's growing fleet of J-20 stealth fighters. It also acts as a critical stopgap, bridging the decade or so until their own homemade stealth fighter, the AMCA, is ready to fly. And crucially, it beefs up their ability to handle the nightmare scenario of a two-front war with both Pakistan and China. But let's be real, this is not going to be a walk in the park. The road ahead is full of major hurdles. The cost is astronomical. Getting a Russian jet to talk to a mixed fleet of French, British, and Indian planes is a massive technical headache. And then there's the whole geopolitical minefield of potential Western sanctions on Russia, which could throw a wrench in the entire supply chain.
So when you boil it all down, and this is really the main takeaway here, this decision is about so much more than just buying a plane. It's a massive statement of strategic ambition. You're watching India try to shape its own aerospace future, bridge a critical technology gap, and make sure that in the, let's face it, pretty turbulent decades ahead, it has the muscle to protect its own interests. The $1 billion question is, can they actually pull it off?
Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the biggest shifts in aerospace, geopolitics, and defense innovation.